Shailesh sir, have you joined? Shailesh sir, are you here?
Hitesh sir, this is Arindam Ray from SIAT. Sir, are you here? Hitesh sir, are you present? We will start our meeting when Hitesh sir will join with us.
Dear participants, we will start our session, today's session, as soon as Dr. Hitesh Vaidya and Shoila sir has joined. They will join within a minute. Due to some meeting, they just requested for hold. We will start as soon as they will join. Thank you. Shailesh sir, good afternoon. Am I audible, sir?
Oh,
Dr.
yes,
Agarwal?
yes. Yes, very
Thank
much
you.
so.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So Hitesh sir will join within a minute.
Yeah,
Uh, he was stuck in a meeting, just he will join within a minute.
yeah.
And then we will start. Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you for joining. Thank you, Hitesh sir, for joining with us. And very good afternoon. Hitesh sir, am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are audible. My apologies.
Thank
I thought it was 2:15, so that's why I was waiting for
no,
5 minutes.
actually, I am also in car because I have to go for the meeting of NIUA
Okay,
and
okay,
KMDA.
okay. Okay, good.
Anyway, Antara, am I audible, Antara? Please start.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Please start, Antara.
Okay, sir. A very good afternoon to the distinguished guests, delegates, speakers, and the participants. I am Antara Kundu, Project Executive of South Asian Institute for Advanced Research and Development. I'm much honored that I get to be a part of this session with the most esteemed personalities. My heartfelt gratitude to all the esteemed delegates for accepting the invitation and presiding over the first day of this 2 day national level webinar on inclusive urbanism and green technology. This event has been organized by Center for Urban and Built Environment of South Asian Institute for Advanced Research and Development in association with Smart Cities Mission, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India. Further making any delay, may I now invite Mr. Arindam Ray, Director, Academic Affairs, SIRD, to say a few words. Over to you, Arindam, sir.
Thanks, Antara.
I want to give the special thanks to the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs for joining with us in the 2 days national level webinar organized by Center for Urban and Built Environment SIRE. Inclusive design means the designing products, services, and environments that as many people as possible can use the regardless of age or ability. It is something called universal design or design for all. It is not a new style of design, but rather a new attitude or approach to design. In general, additionally, inclusive urbanism is also defined as the one in which different social groups mix and have equal opportunities to participate, framed by the combination of these two notions. And this research compiles a series of case studies. Now I want to give my special thank our guest of honor, Mr. Hitesh Vaidya sir, the Director of National Institute of Urban Affairs. Without him, this webinar will be unsuccessful. I would like to thank all the speakers today through whom the webinar will get success. Thank you very much to all of you. Over to you, Antara.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to invite the steersman of SIRE, Dr. Bishwajit Roy Chaudhary, to say a few words. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Antara, for thank you. First of all, on behalf of South Asian Institute for Advanced Research and Development, I heartily welcome to our special guest of honor today, Mr. Hitesh Vaidya sir, the Honorable Director of National Institute of Urban Affairs, along with the Government of India, along with the Dr. Shailesh Agarwal sir, Honorable Executive Director from BMTPC, from also the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India, and today's speaker, Dr. S.P. Gonchaudhary, and Nash scientist also, and along with the other speakers from. Hello, am I audible? Yeah,
Yes, sir, you
Professor
are
Shashwat Bandyopadhyay and also Sharika ma'am from NIUA for joining, for giving their kind consent to be a part of this webinar, this 2 days webinar. First of all, I would like to give my sincere thanks once again to Ministry of Urban Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India, for sharing their associations with us. And also Hitesh Vaidya ji, always you know that the participants, you will be know that from the very beginning of our Center for Urban and Built Environment, that is the CUBE, we are focusing to work on the different verticals of urban sectors. Along with that, to highlight some issues which is most necessary to raise the points in eastern and northeastern parts of India. Though we are working through the virtual mode, but you will be happy to know that within this virtual platform, we have already reached lots of people, as that they are also connected with us, and they are showing their interest to be connected with us. And through this way, the different modes of intellectual discussions, we are also trying to share our viewpoint, the viewpoints of some resource person, of some eminent personalities, those who are working on that particular field, to you, as that you can get some extra knowledge and you can get some interest on that about the various issues related to the urban affairs. So in this regard, on behalf of CUBE Center, we are continuously doing lots of activities, and in future we also promise you to give some new about this. And also we are going to start some diploma courses under this platform, and also some certificate courses along with the application of different technologies in that. And in this respect, one man always support us in this regard, Mr. Hitesh Vaidya ji. I firmly say my voice that he is continuously support in this regard for doing this kind of initiative. And once again, sir, I would like to thanks to you. And today's webinar, definitely, though I am hopefully you can see that I'm in the car because I have to go another meeting for urban ministry sectors also. So I'm apologize that from here I have to say my speech to you. But yes, definitely when Hitesh sir is here, Shailesh ji is also here, definitely the webinar will get some resourceful outputs from here. And participants, thanks to all of you for joining with us. Hope in future we will also get your assistance in this way. Thank you, Antara. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. Now it's time we invite our guest of honor. Today, our guest of honor is Mr. Hitesh Vaidya. Mr. Hitesh Vaidya is currently the director of the National Institute of Urban Affairs, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India. He has over 20 years of experience in the field of urban management, urban governance, and capacity building. He has been involved in providing technical assistance and capacity building support to several urban local bodies and instituting significant urban reforms at local level. He brings on board strong demonstrative experience of improving institutional capacities, including developing strategies, governance, and urban infrastructure management. He has been associated in areas of urban development, World Bank, US Agency for International Development assignments. Poverty alleviation has been an integral component in all his assignments. Prior to joining NIUA, he was the country representative of UN Habitat in India. He was intensely involved in supporting an ecosystem to design and roll out urban programs, including localizing sustainable development goals. His strength lies in developing institutional arrangements and project implementation strategies through facilitating effective liaison and coordination with various stakeholders. Mr. Vaidya holds a master's degree in business development and postgraduate diploma in urban development and planning and specialization in urban management from Institute of Housing and Urban Development Studies, Rotterdam, Netherlands. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Viswajit Chaudhary and Antara, for speaking good words about me. I wish my mother would have been listening that, and she would feel very proud today. I don't deserve that much of praise which you talked about, but thank you for giving. You know, you have a stalwarts in the panel, Dr. Shailesh Agarwal, who is authority in the subject, and I know. Me speaking on the subject is like, if I can say, वो हिंदी में एक proverb है, ऊंट के मुंह में जीरा. So I'm just a jeera in this whole thing. So we have such a great personalities in the panel, and you know, whatever I'm here today is the blessings of Dr. Shailesh Agarwal, and you know, so I thank you for inviting me, but. You know, I don't deserve that much of credit, but that's okay. Thank you. I think this is a very, very interesting topic which you have picked up for this two-day national webinar on inclusive urbanism and green technology. And I think SIAD, before I say SIAD, is really doing a lot of innovative ways of reaching out to the practitioners, reaching out with the different types of experts. And I called up the other day, the SIAD is actually an NIU of the East. So they are actually looking at how they are developing the tools, they are developing the templates, they are coming up with the training programs, they are coming up with the you know, new types of standards. So they are actually doing whatever is as a national think tank has to do at a center level, and I definitely think one NIUA will not be able to do, and we need a number of NIUAs if we really want to address the capacity issues of the country. And I think SIAD is doing excellent work in that, and that's where they have developed their own niche areas, and they have a specialized in GIS technologies, which are much more needed right now, and also on moving out to the issues of urban issues at the eastern sector. So I definitely, you know, calling them the NIU of the East is not a small thing. They are actually performing that work there, and they have whole ambitions of moving to the whole, aligning with the Prime Minister's strategy of moving towards the East. And I think they really deserve and are fulfilling that initiative also. You know, coming back to this whole seminar, we have two very nice words in this seminar title, if you really look at it. One is inclusive urbanism, and second is green technology. You know, if you call me and my 5-10 years association with UN as well as with NIUA and other programs, these two words, inclusive and urbanism, are becoming, or sustainable urbanism, are becoming a buzzwords. You know, how do you define inclusiveness? How do you define sustainability? These are the challenges, because what we are doing at this moment in time, we are using a lot of these words which has come from the West or East. In India, how do these words contextualize within our Indian context is the challenge which we all have to really face. And you know, for me, inclusiveness and sustainability is like, you know, if you don't want to abuse someone, but you are unhappy with him, you told you are inclusive and sustainable, because nobody understands how do you adopt these meanings within our context. They are very loosely interpreted, loosely applied, loosely implemented. And I think that's the challenge which we all have to do, rather than going with the big words of inclusive urbanism, green technology. First of all, I think, and I will say that we are working for whom are we working on? Who are our clients, or who are people whom we are really serving? And our client base, our knowledge base is for the urban local bodies. So when we talk about these words, we have to take in mind that the person in the urban local body, remotest of urban local body, really understands the meaning of these words, understands what it means for him, how he can apply these new jargons which have emerged last couple of years into his day-to-day practice. And I think that is the challenge which all of us has to really face, because we should not be carried out with the language which sounds very good, but what does it really mean for us? And I think that's the area where we need to really focus on. Sustainable Development Goals 2030, which we all have committed, India has also committed, and we are all talking about COP21 to reduce emissions intensity of our GDP by 33%. These are global goals. We all have signed an agreement. India is also a party of to sign this SDG goals or Paris Agreement or other new urban agenda. But whatever is said in these goals, how does it really apply to us? What are those key actions which we need to take at the local level, which can really be fruitful for actually achieving these goals or achieving this agenda? We have seen last couple of years, we have seen several cyclone storms which has come. We have looked at flood. We have looked at extreme weather conditions, Assam floods. Question is, how do we make our actions more and more grounded and inclusive? What is the role these green technologies or inclusiveness will play in making the life of the citizens much better at the ground? So and I know we have a people who have not only looked at it on the panel itself, who have not only looked at these words but applied them. And I think Dr. Shailesh Agrawal has used the green technologies, and he will explain about it. It's not only the word green technologies, he applied, demonstrated, and also shown the beneficiaries on the ground, which is how do you use this big jargon to actually bringing it down to the citizen which it matters. And I think that is the challenge which we all have to do, is not only leave ourselves with this good English jargons, but to apply them and to engage them in actually actions on the ground. And there are different ways of doing it. We are, all of us know, and I don't want to get into the numbers, we are all at the different juncture of urbanization. We have huge aspiration. We want to be a regional leader. We want to not only showcase and I particularly know while I was in UN and now, I definitely believe and firm belief that how much India has achieved, we have not been able to tell our story outside. We have been very, very harsh on ourselves. We always think that we have not done it, but we have to understand that what Western people are talking, we have actually done those things at our thing. But only challenge is the complexity and the scale under which we are working with is totally different than the other Western and other countries are really operating. So we need to really see how do we capture these stories. A story of GHTC, which Dr. Shailesh will talk about, or the stories which Saraswat has worked about in how do we really bring these stories together and really showcase to other urban local bodies across the country that they can do that. And I see that while we are working with this type of idea of how do we make our cities more inclusive, how do we use the green technologies into our day-to-day action, because recently I also, whenever you use the word green, whether it is housing, whether it is other technology, as soon as you use the word green, it becomes unaffordable. Any house, when you say green, we say, isme karna kya hai? Do I paint everything green? Or when you say word green automatically adds the premium to the cost. So can this green be affordable? Can our cities really use this green? Those are the things which we need to think about while we are moving towards this. When we talk about inclusive, what do we mean by inclusive? Inclusive has a long range. It's a women inclusive, it's a child inclusive, it's an old age inclusive, or for me, inclusive is how does the city become more accessible? How does city becomes available? Infrastructure becomes more accessible to everyone, and those are the things which we have to really apply those inclusive parameters to our infrastructure which we are coming up. And for that, I think we need to come up with the 3 things which I always insist of. One is we have to focus on looking at our planning, go back to the drawing table, look at our planning strategies or our planning frameworks which we apply. And I will say that right now I have just delivered a master plan of Delhi 2041. We have used all these words which you might be hearing: sustainable, inclusive, and all. But keep a hand on your heart, and if you think any planner on the earth who can say that Delhi 2041 will be like that, there is not a planner of earth. We have to incrementally push these ideas. We have to demonstrate these ideas. That's why there will be acceptability. Right now, there is just words which are floating out, and it's a role of institutions like NIUA or SIAD to really use that language or make these ideas much more acceptable to the practitioners at the local level. And that can happen only through projects, that can happen through a demonstration pilots, and then create up a strategy from the pilots to the policies. What are the enabling frameworks? What are the management lessons we need to really build on? What are the organizational lessons we need to really look at? What are those legal actions which we need to really build on to make these strategies more inclusive and more acceptable? So all of that has to be looked at it. We also looked at it while we are talking about all of this. As I told you, that green becomes unaffordable. We also have to look at the financial capacities of urban local bodies. How do we use the financial capacities of urban local bodies? So they start looking at it, and that requires looking at internal finances of urban local bodies, looking at what type of frameworks they have when they are adopting these technologies. How do when I say that I am developing let's say a stadium for things, how do I make this stadium becomes inclusive? Or I am applying some technology. How do I ensure? What are those checklists which I have that ensures that this is a green technology, this brings a benefit in the long run, short term or medium term to my urban local body, and this makes our infrastructure more inclusive or more environmental friendly. So all of this has to be talked about. We are all talking about a reduction in pollution and emissions, and I think a whole approach of non-motorized transport has been already applied. We are moving towards bicycle-friendly cities. But again, as I told you, we are doing a lot of things. But are we creating the necessary infrastructure for that? Bicycle-friendly definitely will bring a lot of green technologies, but it may not. The bicycle should be a last mile connectivity for people. It should be not a bicycle for adventure, but bicycle for mode of travel. How do we convert that? So it's not a question of creating a pilots, but pilots have to bring those lessons which then can be taken up at the national level for coming up with the policy frameworks, enabling policy frameworks, which can then be available to across the urban local bodies. Because what we right now, if you say green technologies or inclusive, we have stories of Ahmedabad, we have a story of Ludhiana, something being story of Amritsar. But as an India story, we need to bring these small stories together and then present that this is the policy which India really promotes towards inclusive urbanism and green, promoting the green technologies. I think this requires massive campaign to really work on it, and I will feel it requires three things, and which is called advocacy, advocacy, advocacy. And that is the role which NIUA and SIAD has to play much more. I think we also need a skill development among the youth to really start thinking about it. We have to target the young population of India to really build on these new words which we have coined for ourselves, to really align them with the day-to-day mandate of urban local bodies, align to their functional obligations, and that is where we need to really focus on. We all understand that urbanization and economic growth are important aspects, but how do we make it's not only economy, we have to ensure that they are sustainable, they are inclusive, they are available to everyone. And for that, I think we need to really focus our discussions on bringing the actual practitioners on board, talking in their own language, and making this more actionable to do that. But I thank you for inviting me for this workshop. I will not be monopolizing this discussion because there are stalwarts here who have to speak, and they are experts here. I'm a non-expert on this subject, but I think my whole idea is we now need, time has come that we need to show our talks to action. We have to start walk the talk. Otherwise, they will remain as a talk. These words are very useful, but how do we apply these words in our day-to-day action is much more important. And we need to start thinking about what are challenges. And I maybe one of the area which Dr. Agarwal can talk about is talking about green technology in housing. What are the major challenges we face? Where do we really need to be? Is it a procurement challenge? It is a process challenge, or is it a product challenge? What is the challenge? Or is a governance issue altogether to scale it up? So all of that has to be built up in our new policy frameworks. And I think I see a lot of hope based on these learnings which we have from different challenges and different areas we have worked, that role of NIUA and SIAD becomes much more important now to scale these initiatives across the country and build that constituency for a new transformative urban reforms or new urban India, which is we all are envisaging in our hearts, but it has to now start coming in our actions. Thank you very much for giving me a time and listening to me. I hope I made some sense, but I'll leave it to Dr. Agarwal and other panelists to comment on it. But I talked from my heart rather than just talking about some thoughts which I would have just delivered and read it. So that's where I think. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Sir, I would, sorry, Antara, I would like to interrupt just a point that I include one point to Hitesh sir, that on behalf of SIAD Cube, sir, we are going to take an initiative that urban dialogue. So urban dialogue means in every month, there will be one dialogue from eminent personalities throughout the world. And this is the urban dialogue on various emerging issues, which are not existing at all, but also the emerging issues. We would like to start through this urban dialogue. And there are already I have connected the UN Habitat, the director and other European Commission's personals also. What are they think? And from the different countries, people have also will join, and they are showing their interest to be a part of that urban dialogue in future.
मेरा सिर्फ एक ही है, अगर हिंदी में बोलूं, उनकी अंग्रेजी मेरी हिंदी के साथ मैच होनी चाहिए, बाकी कुछ नहीं है, सिर्फ अंग्रेजी लिख लेनी चाहिए बस. That is all I say. That I have been last week, we have a lot of knowledge, There is no dearth of knowledge. Question is how it really translates to my English, my day-to-day learning, my operations. That's where my thing is. And I won't say anything because my teacher, Dr. Agarwal, will start scolding me before I speak more. So thanks.
Definitely. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah, Antara, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for taking out your precious time and sharing your thoughts and views with us. Now I'd like to invite Dr. S.K. Agarwal for the keynote lecture. Dr. Shailesh Agarwal is currently working as Executive Director, Building Materials and Technology Promotion Council. The current areas of his work are alternate building materials and construction technologies, disaster mitigation and management, skill development and capacity building and project management and consultancy, transplanting best construction systems from the globe for faster delivery of quality, sustainable and affordable house across India, and vulnerability atlas of India. Prior to this assignment, he had devoted his 20 years to provide S&T backup in the area of building science and technology in the capacity of scientist at CSIR, CBRI, with special emphasis on earthquake engineering, structural dynamics, district structures, repair and rehabilitation, computer-aided structural analysis, and design through continued R&D with quality objectives in applied research, societal-based R&D programs, resource generation, and publications. He has published around 100 research papers in journals, conferences, 5 books, and a few dissemination and training series. He holds a PhD in earthquake engineering, Master of Science in S&T, MTech in structural engineering, and BTech in civil engineering. I warmly invite you to share your thoughts with us, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
My screen is visible. So at the outset, I would like to thank Hiteshji. Hiteshji is a great person, and all great persons are very humble. And so whatever he talked about me, it applies to him, not to me. And he, you know, ever since he joined UN, he has been making name and even for the country. And he was handpicked by Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs to lead such an important organization, National Institute of Urban Affairs. And the moment he joined NIUA, after that, you know, things have started changing. And I mean, his speech was so impressive. He talked about walk the talk, and that's what we would like to do. It is high time that words like green buildings, inclusiveness, urbanizations, they should, we should walk the talk. Green, everybody is talking about green sustainability without understanding a bit of it. Particularly when we talk about civil engineers and architects, I always joke that greenness is nothing but providing a double glass door and painting and orienting your building. It is not like that. Okay, so Hiteshji, thank you very much for your nice words. And let me also tell you, since you requested SIAD to include me, that's why I am here. I pleaded that I would be out of context here, because being a technocrat, I would be talking about construction systems. It is going to be purely technical lecture. It's not on policies and all. But since you directed me, so I thought your wish is my command, and I cannot say no to Hiteshji. Very dear friend of mine. So that's why I am here. So thank you very much, Dr. Chaudhary, and your entire team for putting such a relevant topic. I don't know whether I fit in this topic, because inclusive urbanism and green technologies. Again, Hiteshji said a very nice thing, for whom you are working. So my lecture is naturally for civil engineers and hardcore architects who wish to bring speedier construction systems in the sector. So, I don't know, but let me start and let me make a try. So the topic is emerging construction system for mass housing. And let me just tell you, because I have just included a slide, and this is a slide about urbanization, and this contains the facts and figures, being published by ministry. And as you can see here, we are fast urbanizing. By 2030, 40% of our population will live in urban areas, and by 2050, it will be 50%. And if you can see the rectangle just below that graphics, you will see that to cater to this growing population, India has to build 600 to 800 million square meter urban space every year. And this was a statement given by our honorable minister in one of the conferences, and I picked it from there. So this 600, 800 million square meter urban space means we have to build a new Chicago every year till 2030. So we are for next 9 to 10 years, we have to build this much of urban space. So in order to build this much of urban space, we have to be receptive, we have to be innovative, we have to be productive also. And and in our mind, we should always keep in mind that we have to foster sustainable growth and ensure better quality of living. So can it be done with business as usual approach? And being civil engineer and structural engineer, we are trying to bring in new construction systems which can help us build faster, keeping in mind climate change, sustainability, disaster resilience, and so many things which I will be talking in this lecture. And also, dear friends, let me tell you participants as well that next year we will be completing 75th year of our independence, and we want to build new young India. And we want to take our economy to $5 trillion economy, which is right now $3 trillion economy. And our sector, which is the construction sector, the buildings and infrastructure sector, is going to play the most important role because it contributes significantly to our GDP. And that is why we thought of bringing something new, new systems which can help build new India, which is sustainable and resilient. Also, let me tell you here that this is again a statement given by our minister time and again, that the kind of urban renewal scheme being undertaken by Government of India, these are unheard of. The kind of scale, the kind of urban reconnaissance schemes, nowhere in the world this kind of things have taken place. So we all should feel proud that this is the scale we are working with. And all the time we start comparing our country with other countries, but let me tell you the kind of scales we have, they are mind-boggling. Unthinkable. I will give you the figures of housing. You just can't think of it. So whenever we talk about inclusiveness, we talk about sustainability, always keep in mind that scale. And that is why whenever we want to bring in something new, we work on a 3S mantra, which is 3S stands for skill, scale, and speed. So skill, I think Hiteshji also talked about skill. Skill is very important if we want to build new India, if we want to bring in sustainability, if we want to foster sustainable growth, ensure better quality, we want to have smart cities, we need to have a different and new set of skills in the country. And always remember scale. Our country cannot be compared with any other country. The kind of scales we have, nowhere in the world that kind of scale we have. Whether I talk about housing, we require 11.3 million, more than 1 crore houses to be built in the urban areas. And speed. I always say in my lectures that speed is going to play one of the, it is going to be of paramount importance. Earlier, we always talked about cost and other things, but unless we build fast, it is not going to make sense. And the way the Honorable Prime Minister and the present government is looking at India, and we want to take India to one of the fastest growing economy, so we have to deliver our goals faster, and that is why speed is going to be very important. And to my fresh graduates and prospective students and architects who are practicing and who wish to start their career, let me tell you, in times to come, it's whenever you conceive a project or whenever you think of a project, speed will be the most important factor. Okay. So with this word, let me just also show you this slide because we require in urban areas, we work in Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban. There are two schemes being run by Government of India. One is PMAY Urban, and which is known as the PMAY Shehri, and the other one is PMAY Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Gramin, which is rural. And through these two schemes, the present government is aiming that when we celebrate 75th year of our independence, there should be a pakka house to each household in India, particularly the people living in the poor people of the India. And because I deal with urban, we deal with urban. So in urban, the urban shortage, when we started this PMAY mission in 2015, it was 11.3 million. So just think of that scale. 1.13 crore houses need to be constructed in urban area by 2022. And I am so proud to share with you that already we have sanctioned, we have already achieved the target, and out of these 1 crore houses, 8.4 million houses have already been grounded, out of which 50 lakh houses or 5 million houses have already been handed over to the beneficiaries. And out of this 1 crore houses, 1.6 million houses are being constructed with innovative technology. And friends, this was the background that when we thought that we have to build so many houses, do we have enough material? Do we have enough, infrastructure to execute this kind of thing? Can we do it within the time frame given to us, without vitiating our mother nature, without vitiating our natural resources, without creating pollution and waste? So with that we started, and we thought that it is high time that we bring in a set of technologies or systems or materials which are sustainable and which can help build faster, and which can help in the sustainable development goals, climate mitigation strategies, to which India is also committed to reduce carbon footprint. So with all these things we started, and let me just tell you, this is a slide for civil engineers. Normally, the construction which takes place in all over the world takes place in these two categories, and you can see the pictures on the right hand side of my screen. One is the load bearing construction, where you put brick by brick, create the wall, and then put the slab. Other is cast in place construction, where you create reinforced concrete beam and columns, and then do the infill walls. Okay, and now let me tell you that these two approaches are slow track construction. They require a lot of natural resources, create a lot of pollution. The kind of material we are using, they are quite energy intensive. So all of this is business as usual, and if we continue to construct with these practices in vogue, we will not be able to achieve the target which is given to us, and we will be harming the mother earth. We will be encroaching upon the natural resources which are already in short supply. This is again a slide. Primarily the major construction material is cement, aggregate, and water. And earlier it was said that water is you require a lot of water when you do any construction or whenever you create an infrastructure, because water is required for curing and all, and that water is potable water. You require potable water, drinking water, and water is scarce, all of you know. And there is another thing, fine aggregate, sand. Let me tell you, earlier there used to be a proverb was saying that the next world war would be fought on water. Let me tell you that the next world war would be fought on sand. And if you Google and just type sand war, you will be amazed. You will be astonished to see that sand all of a sudden has become scarce. And we never thought, we always used to extract the sand from the rivers or through mining, but nowadays all of a sudden sand is being manufactured. Okay, so sand has become a scarce material, and it has happened because we have been irrationally managing our natural resources, and the sand all of a sudden become scarce. And that is why, if you see some even on TV, you will find there are advertisement of sand making machines. So just imagine that now we have to make sand. Similarly, during COVID time, we understood that the importance of labor, skilled labor. All of a sudden, all the projects came to halt. So can't we have some industrialized systems where, whether it is pandemic or any natural hazard or any other thing, the work keeps on going without any delays. Okay, and so there is shortage of skilled labor, and most of the construction is not up to the mark if we continue to adopt this business as usual approach. Also, Hiteshji was talking about it is time now that earlier as civil engineers, when we practiced, we never bothered about. We always took cement, brick for granted. But now these materials no longer can be taken for granted because they are unsustainable. Cement produces a lot of greenhouse gases. Embodied energy requirement is high. Brick, all of consumes topsoil and also emits greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide. So green buildings or green or sustainable practices are the order of the day, and we need to practice those in day-to-day construction and building our infrastructure. Also, this word, you please take it from me, that as a true patriot or as a true citizen of India, we need, whatever we do, we have to do pretty fast. And when I say pretty fast, it doesn't mean that pretty fast, without sacrificing structural, functional, other requirements. Speed doesn't mean that you compromise with quality, affordability, sustainability, disaster resilience. But whatever we have to do, if we want to be leading the world, we need to bring in speedier construction systems, technologies, and whatever we do. Green, because this is something of green. Ever since I've heard this word green, everybody defines these green buildings in different ways. So I have written that green aspects can be explained in four major parameters. One is resource efficiency, energy efficiency, eco-friendliness, and health. Resource efficiency means, all the time we cannot take, like cement. If we talk about cement, is based on natural resource, limestone. Steel is based on iron ore. So, you need to bring in materials and systems which are resource efficient, I don't say, don't use cement, don't use steel, but use them optimally. And all of us know how work takes place at the site. There is no control on uses of water. There is no control on uses of other materials. So let's optimize the use. Let's bring in natural resource efficiency. So can we use waste materials? Can we use this? There are so many waste. Now everybody's talking about circular economy. So whatever waste we produce, can that waste be converted into useful building products or building materials? So the answer is yes. And it's been doing. Nowadays, even research is being done on producing concrete without cement. So you no longer require cement to produce concrete. Energy, all of us know India is a country, energy is scarce, and so we have to bring in practices which are energy efficient. So embodied energy of material, transporting that material to the site. How can the energy requirement can be cut down? That is another aspect which need to be looked into. Greenness, eco-friendliness. All of us know greenhouse gas emission, and like we talk about plantation timber nowadays. Bamboo is another green material, and can we have systems, materials, and practices which can help us in eco-friendliness. And fourth is also very important point is health of the occupants. Let me share with you that every now and then we talk about air quality index, and metros like Delhi, even Calcutta, and Mumbai, and all air quality index, and this particulate material 10 and 2.5, it reaches some limit and all. But let me tell you, the when you are experiencing this air quality outside, what about inside the air quality index? And there has been a study by UNEP which says that indoor air quality is 2 to 4 times more poisonous than the outside air quality. 2 to 4 times. And why it has happened? Because the kind of material, the kind of treatment, the kind of varnishes we are using, the kind of paints we are using, because we always take them for granted. The paint we are using is okay, this is the paint, but they emit poisonous gases or harmful emissions which are quite detrimental to the health of the occupant. So health of the occupant is also very important, and that is why greenness can be explained in resource efficiency, energy efficiency, eco-friendliness, and health of the occupants. Again, this is a slide from Energy Research Institute, and because I am dealing with the buildings, residential sector. So buildings consume 40% of precious energy resource, 25% of precious water, and 40% of natural resources. Okay, and at the same time, building activities contribute 50% to air pollution, 42% to greenhouse gas emission, 50% to water pollution, and 48% of solid waste is being generated through the building activities. So can we cut? So on one side, buildings consume precious energy, water, and natural resources, and on the other side, they contribute to pollution and greenhouse gas emission and water pollution and generate solid waste. And also, as a signatory to the Paris Agreement, we need to cut down our carbon emissions, and if we continue to have that business as usual approach, the greenhouse gas emissions, and we continue to use even these building materials which I talked about, the technologies which are in vogue, the greenhouse gas emissions will double by 2050. So what is required? We require something new. We require out-of-box thinking, and that is what being done at Government of India level. We have come out with some technologies which I'll be explaining you quickly. So whatever I just explained you is just written here, that we require speed. I explained you why. Quality cannot be compromised anytime, and I come from a field of earthquake engineering, so we have seen the structures showing no distress, and whenever there is a earthquake or a cyclone for that matter, those buildings start showing distress or extensive damage, and it happens because qualities are not up to the mark. So quality is also very important. Safety. India is a country which is prone to natural hazards, whether be it cyclone, flood, earthquakes, and nowadays even thunderstorm we have. So safety of structure is very important. Sustainability. This is the seminar is all about sustainability. So as civil engineers, as architects, or as policymakers, whenever we think of any project or build any infrastructure or building, sustainability has to be kept in mind. And sustainability is very wider term. And as I told you, if we can ensure energy efficiency, eco-friendliness, health, disaster resilience, somehow we are able to achieve that sustainability. Life cycle cost is another new term which is being coined now. Every time we are talking about cost. I always give the example that as Indians we talk, what is the cost per square meter, or what is the cost of this? We never talk about life cycle cost. Life cycle cost is, it is a summation of initial cost plus operating cost and disposal cost. Do we ever think of disposal cost? The answer is no. A building which is being constructed by me or as an engineer or as an architect, once the service life of building is over, how that building is going to be disposed, we never bothered about that. But now it is the time that once the service life of building is over, how this building is going to be disposed so that it does not create any harmful effect on the environment or on the water and on the land. So that is very important. And then majority of the cost goes in operating a building or operating our infrastructure. So that operating cost is also very important. So, whenever we build anything, think that how we are going to reduce the operating cost, because during the operations of a building, major energy is being consumed during that time. Major emissions take place during the service life of the building. So always talk about life cycle cost. So that life cycle cost is also going to play a very important role in times to come. And this is also going to be a very important parameter in deciding the projects in times to come. And last is the functional performance, because whenever we talk about, we are so much obsessed with the reinforced concrete construction, thick walls and all. And when we start comparing that with the new construction system, which have relatively thinner, walls and thinner sections, so the questions are being raised about functionality, functional performance of these buildings. So functional performance means thermal efficiency, sound, fire resistance, and all. So always look for functionality of the building. Whatever you are giving new, will it be functional? Will it gel well with the current living or practices? Okay, and by introducing all these things or sustainable practices, we can reduce, and it has been shown by, again, this is the data from the Energy Research Institute, one of the pioneer organizations working in this area, that by implementing or by practicing these sustainable practices, materials and technologies, the energy use can be reduced 30 to 50%. Water uses can also be reduced significantly, up to 40%. Greenhouse gas emission 35%. And there will be, have we ever thought of, whenever you go to any project site, you will find heaps of construction waste. So now, in times to come, there is going to be, a rider that whenever you finish up, whatever waste you are producing during construction has to be consumed in that project itself. If you go to UK and all, there you have to have zero waste product. So similar, the kind of waste we are producing, can that waste be utilized in the project itself, or do we have systems, technologies and processes where we generate no waste when we do the construction? Okay. This is a very interesting slide to show you. All of you can understand. These are the levels of construction technology all over the world. So, the level 0 to level 4, and I will explain you what is level 4. Just I will pause for a second here, and you all try to assimilate this slide and think that at which level you are, or at which level you understand or you know about. Okay, in the world or even in India, we have reached up to level 4. But most of you will agree with me that the answer to your mind which will come is level 0. Level 0 is where we collect the material at the site, and then we call masons, supervisors, contractors, developers, and ask them to start building the structure or building or bridge or whatever you call it. So collecting the material at the site and doing the construction, that is level 0. And level 4 is, level 4 is where the entire thing, entire building, pre-finished building is done in the factory. All you have to do is bring that building to your site and start using it. It's like plug and play home. I give the example of plug and play home. Plug and play is what? Plug and play is your USB drive is plug and play device. So what is plug and play device means that the USB drive you put in your computer or in your TV and start seeing the movie or videos or your photographs or start playing presentation. So same thing is being done in building construction. So that is plug and play homes. So what you do everything in the factory, bring it to the site, connect it with the plug and play means connected with the water, electricity, and start using it. And that is called level 4. And dear friends, we have reached at level 4 even in India. So which is unheard of. And level 3 is where level 4 everything is pre-finished, means you put the services, you put the water connection, you put even the furniture in the factory setup, in the setup, and then just start using. And level 3 is where you just make the skeleton. And level 3 is also being used in India. There are a number of companies who have already reached at level 3. Level 3 means you might have seen the child playing with the Lego blocks. So what do they do? They just by putting block one over other, they get the shape, whatever shape they want to create. So same thing can be done in building. You just make the modules, put one over other to create a multi-story tower. So that is level 3, and there are a number of companies in India who are doing this level 3. And as Ritesh was telling you that I normally don't preach. I also what I preach, I practice. So already we are doing a project at level 3 where building blocks will be building modules, or the rooms will be treated as building blocks. They will be fabricated in the factory and then will be put one over other to create the multi-story tower. So, the word has reached to level 4, and through Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs and Building Research and Technology Promotion Council, we are trying to take a leap jump. So I call it a pole vault. So from level 0 to level 4, we want to reach, and that's our sincere attempt. And you all will agree with me that the kind of background I gave to you, that what are the advantages associated with this if we take a jump from level 0 to level 4. This slide I will just very briefly now. All these technologies are customized. So another new term has come in the market, which is design for manufacture and assembly. You go to the tailor and ask him that as per your requirement, as per your size, as per your fit, the size and other things, you get the shirt or the jacket made. So same thing can be done in the building infrastructure construction. There are companies who are like tailor. So they will design for manufacture and assembly. So give them your requirement, give your sizes and all. They will do everything for you. They will create a plant. They will construct building theirs and then bring it to the site and do. So there are agencies now. No longer you have contractors, developer. You have agencies who do design for manufacture and assembly. I also want to coin a word, very interesting word here: manufacturing of buildings. Just try to think, instead of constructing a building, we are going for manufacturing of building. And the moment you understand the difference between constructing a building and manufacturing a building, you understand what I'm talking about. So manufacturing a building means you take the entire operations from the site to the factory, and you start manufacturing a building. I also let me also tell you that you might have, if you go and visit any industry of car manufacturing facility, what they do there, they will it is called assembly line production, where they will each person will put one part and the end product will be the complete finished car. Same thing is being done in buildings, where they are putting component wise, and at the end you get the building manufactured. And there are agencies in India who are doing it already. So we are trying to bring manufacturing, and the moment you bring manufacturing, you will get away with a lot of things. You can have energy, you can have everything can be controlled. Okay. Then this is again a slide, and as I have been repeatedly telling you that all these things have come to India, and as Government of India, we are promoting them. We have already created a basket of these technologies, which I will just explain you. And organizers, please let me know whenever I have to finish. I will just finish because I don't know how much time I have. So this is a 3D printed house. This is a building which is being done by L&T. All of you must be knowing about L&T. Is one of the
So actually, sorry to interrupt you, sir, but you had 25 minutes. You already have gone over the time limit. It's okay. You just finish it. It's okay.
5 minutes, I'll finish, no issues. I will finish in 5 minutes. So this is again a slide to show you that right here in India, this is the 3D printed house, okay? And I was fortunate enough to be part of this initiative, and this was inaugurated by Honorable Finance Minister, and I was also part of this. So this is in Kanchipuram in Tamil Nadu, this is the 3D printed building. And all of you know 3D printing means you just give a command to the computer, and then like you create a picture or create a Word document and just give a command, and your computer gives you the printout. In a similar fashion, you give a command, and here you have cartridge, there you have construction ink. Construction ink is nothing but a special kind of cement, and that way, but just by a click of command and through robotics, you can print this kind of building. So this is the first 3D printed building in India. Okay, and so with this, with this background, let me tell you that we have shortlisted around 54 new construction systems, which are broadly classified into these 6 broad categories. I will not go into detail because I am already encroaching your time. So what you can do is, all of you, if you are interested in these construction systems, you can go to my YouTube channel. In that YouTube channel, you can just type my name or type BMTPC, and you will get whole lot of literature, whole lot of educative films. In fact, we have created video lectures also in pedagogy form, where you can learn and understand about these construction systems. So I will not go, but I'll just tell you these construction systems are broadly classified into these 6 broad categories: formwork systems, stay in place formwork system, then sandwich panel system, which is also known as drywall construction, then steel steel-based structural systems, and precast concrete construction system. Let me tell you, precast concrete construction system, all of you might have seen how metro is being done, how earlier bridges were constructed, and now how bridges are being constructed. So what is being done, you are getting the girders and all being made in the factory, and one fine day you have the columns erected, and over that column you put the girder, and then you start doing the metro operation. So similar kind of things are being practiced in the construction sector. So let me just not give you all these things. I will just give you one slide, because since Hiteshji was talking about global housing challenge, looking at all these needs and all, even our Honorable Prime Minister was quite fascinated by all these new construction systems, and thought that we should bring in these technologies to our country. And what we did, we conceptualized Global Housing Technology Challenge, and we floated a challenge to the global technology providers and global agencies that can we have construction systems which can help build maximum number of houses in minimum time and minimum cost. Let me again repeat, we threw a challenge to the at a global level to the world, that do we have construction systems, processes, and technologies which can help build maximum number of houses in minimum time and minimum cost. And that challenge was a huge success. It was inaugurated by Honorable Prime Minister in March 2019, and through that challenge we could shortlist 54 new construction systems. And the details of those systems are available on this website. Please make a note of this. It's a very informative website. You will get all details about technology, systems, and our initiatives on this website. So GHTC stands for Global Housing Technology Challenge, GHTC-India.gov.in. You go to this website and get the information. Okay, so these are the 54 those new technologies, and which are again divided into these 6 broad categories. I'm not going into the details of this technology. So all these 54 technologies are available now, and we want to make these technologies as the technologies for the future. And as I was telling you, walk the talk, we have already started the lighthouse projects where we are constructing 1,000 houses, more than 1,000 houses at 6 locations, which I will just show you. Yeah, this is the slide. Now using these 54 technologies, we are constructing 6 lighthouse projects, and we are calling them lighthouse projects. So lighthouse projects are like incubation centers where all of you can go see the implementation of these new technologies, learn these technologies and adapt them in your future. The idea here is to adopt these technologies and make them technologies for the future construction in India. So these are the 6 lighthouse projects, and again, the foundation stone laying ceremony for all these lighthouse projects was done by Honorable Prime Minister on a virtual mode on 1st of January 2021, and all these projects are running pretty fast, and the construction time given for completion of all these projects is 12 months, and whosoever does it fastest, there is a prize money for that. There is an incentivization. So in 12 months these projects are to be completed, and through this platform, in fact, while inaugurating these projects, Honorable Prime Minister urged that all these stakeholders, including students, faculty members, policymakers, all of them should go visit this project and understand about these technologies and start using them. So this is that slide to show you that Prime Minister did that. And what we are doing, we are also calling these lighthouse projects as live laboratories, and we have also started a scheme called Technograhi. So I will urge all of you, if you have not registered, you can enroll yourself as Technograhi. And Technograhi is a word given on the lines of Satyagrahi. Satyagrahi was the word given for freedom fighters by Father of Nation, Mahatma Gandhi ji. After that, when we started Swachh Bharat Mission, we coined the word Swachhagrahi, and now we have coined the word Technograhi. And Technograhi is a word for all the stakeholders who would be the change agents of innovative and sustainable construction technologies. So you all can get enrolled free of cost for this Technograhi, and the moment you enroll yourself as Technograhi, you will be connected with Ministry and us, and you will get to know the progress of all these projects. You will get to know about the latest trends on all these things. So with this, I will just finish, and this is my last slide. I'm sorry for encroaching in the time. So let's be part of India's growth story by reforming, performing, and transforming. And if you have anything to ask me, you can always write to me on my email. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. If any of the participants have any query, you may now ask those or clear those if you have anything to share. Anybody? Okay, sir. I don't think there's any question raised. Thank you so much. It is our privilege that a learned person like you has accepted our invitation and shared your thoughts through such instructive presentation with us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Now we have a special lecture by Dr. S.P. Gon Chaudhary. Dr. S.P. Gon Chaudhary is the head NB Institute for Rural Technology, Kolkata. He is an industry stalwart and a solar expert, associated as a technical advisor. He also plays a vital role in research and development and various technological innovations. Mr. Chaudhary is presently working for the Government of India as a national level monitor of renewable energy program. He has 28 years of experience in the field of renewable energy. He has worked for more than 70 years as the head of the Renewable Energy Department, Government of West Bengal. India's first off-grid solar power plant with mini grid was designed and set up by Mr. Chaudhary. I cordially invite you to share your views with us, sir. Over to you, Dr. Chaudhary.
Thank you. Thank you very much for giving me opportunity to speak here. So I'll be a little bit, I have to leave also. So I'll be a little bit short. I have some slides. I will very quickly go through the slides, and then if there is any question, I will try to take. But I'll be some brief. I'll be making my presentation in brief. So let me start. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay. So I will be speaking on switching to green energy. Energy is required to do any work, as you know, for do any work. Even when we sleep, we need energy to keep our lung and heart functioning. So energy is the basic. Even last presentation you have seen in the housing sector also, 40% energy is required for construction of the housing. So everywhere we need energy. So this energy, there has been a switching, gradually from the polluting energy sources, we have switched over to non-polluting or renewable energy sources gradually. So I'll try to make a presentation on that, how from coal, oil, nuclear to renewable or particularly solar energy we have switched over.
Sorry to interrupt, but your slide are not visible. Slides are not visible actually.
Slides are not visible?
Not yet, sir.
Fuel. Just wait for a minute.
Sure, sir.
দেখো তোমরা কেন এরকম হয় আমি বুঝি না প্রেজেন্টেশনে Now is it visible?
Not yet, sir.
Can you see the slide? No?
No, sir, not yet, sir.
You can't see the slides. I've already shared. From here, I find it is visible.
Yes, sir. Now it is visible, sir. This is visible now.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Okay. Sorry. So, as I have mentioned, how we have switched over to renewable energy, to clean energy or green energy, I will try to make a presentation on that. You see, the story of coal, we started with coal. Actually, coal was one of the man's earliest source of heat and light. The Chinese were known to have used it more than 3,000 years ago. The first recorded discovery of coal was in the Illinois River in 1679, and the earliest recorded commercial mining really occurred in 1748. So we are basically on a commercial way, we are using coal from 1748, and that was the earliest source of energy. We started with coal. And on April 13, 1750, Dr. Thomas Walker was the first recorded person to discover the use of coal in Kentucky. And as you know, the Industrial Revolution played a major role in expanding the use of coal. And the 19th century real use of coal started to power steam engine, and in later part to generate electricity. And now we generate electricity in India. Our electricity generation, 60% of our electricity generation still, though recently you have seen in the newspaper, we have achieved 100,000 megawatt of renewable energy, green energy, but still India produce 60 to 65% of energy from coal itself. So this is the history of coal, how and coal will continue to be used in future also. As you know, we will be depending on coal up to 2040, 2045, and then maybe we will switch over completely to the renewable energy or any other alternative energy sources, maybe up beyond 2045. So next 20-25 years, we will be depending on coal, but definitely the depending on coal will be phased out gradually because it is polluting in nature. I am coming to that. Next is story of oil. The Chinese again were the first to use petroleum as fuel as early as the 4th century BC. The earliest known oil wells were drilled in China in 347 AD. So at that time, oil was used for to evaporate, brine to produce salt and other things, not for generation of electricity or really not for producing energy in real terms. But that was the beginning of the use of oil. The modern history of petroleum began in the 19th century, again like coal, with the refining of paraffin from crude oil. In 1846, Baku, really it is the capital of Azerbaijan now. I've been to that place also, and they started oil exploration by drilling of 21 meters. Oil, they struck oil. And the kerosene lamp invented in 1854. At that time, invention of kerosene lamp was a big thing. It was a revolution. And there we used the petroleum product. First time kerosene lamp, kerosene was used for lighting purpose. So that was the, early story of the oil, how oil was used to generate electricity. And of course, still many people in India, about 20 crore people in India still use this kerosene lantern in many remote areas, remote villages. But it started really many years back in 1854. We started using of this kerosene lantern. Now, one thing happened. Till 1950s, coal and oil were the main source of energy. In 1954, Russians set up the first nuclear power plant of capacity 5 megawatts. And at that time, it was the general opinion that nuclear power would solve the world energy crisis. At that time, in 1950s, 1960s, we were very hopeful about the nuclear power. And we thought no use of coal, no use of oil, we will solve the energy problem and we will go for nuclear power. In fact, in France, they started depending on nuclear power up to 76% of their power, came from nuclear. But as you know, at the later part, in 80s, the Chernobyl accident, and later part, the Fukushima accident and other nuclear power plant accidents occurred. And then gradually, the nuclear power started, declining. And throughout the whole world, now nuclear power is not considered as a main source of energy in future because of the safety and other issues. The pollution is started with burning of coal and oil. That is the real thing, why we have shifted towards green energy. We are discussing today about the green technology. So the pollution before 1975 or 70s, we never thought about the pollution. But in 1975 onwards, we thought about the pollution and we thought about the global warming, the climate change, those issues, came up in 80s and 90s, the Rio conference and other major environment event. We first started targeting coal and oil as the main source of pollution. We found out that these are the main sources of pollution, and we thought how to shift to green energy, pollution-free energy, zero emission energy. From that, now it is not very, only 30 years back in 1990s, we started seriously thinking about shifting to solar energy, wind energy, and other renewable energy sources, which are eco-friendly, which are non-polluting, and which are infinite sources of energy. So that is the starting, that is the starting of use of renewable energy or green energy, green technology, for the sustainable development or sustainable energy use. That is the beginning. From that, you can see now how the global energy fuelwood was the first, energy source, earlier energy source, how it declined, and how coal and oil, they are also declining now. And then you can see renewable energy and nuclear power a little bit, how they are really increasing, and in future, how renewable energy will take over the entire energy basket, of the world. We will depend totally on renewable energy. Maybe beyond 2075, the whole world will depend on renewable energy, 100% shifting. Already 50% switching over will be done. Many countries have declared by the year 2050, all those countries will shift towards renewable energy up to 50%. India also, to keep their commitment, by 2030, India is to reduce its emission by 33%, emission reduction by the year 2030. So if India is to do that, India will also depend on exploration of renewable energy, because they have to go. And already, Prime Minister has announced our first target is 175 gigawatt renewable energy by the year 2022. 100 gigawatt we have already achieved. by the year 2022, 175 gigawatt, and by the year 2030, 450 gigawatt, 450,000 megawatt of renewable energy shifting. That means, future scenario will be totally different. You will never find, a polluting thermal power plant and other, normal transport system. You may not find. You may find only electric vehicle, and you may find only solar power plant and wind power plant in the energy scenario of the country. And those days are coming. There is no doubt in it. There will be gradual shift towards all these new technologies, new sustainable energy sources. These are all green energy technology. You can see solar power, you can see wind power, you can see microhydro, that is also clean energy, there is no pollution. You can see biomass based energy sources. So all these energy sources we are supposed to generate 1,75,000 megawatt. Please note now 2 lakh megawatt is our demand of energy now. We are going to generate about 1,75,000 megawatt of energy by the year 2022 from these energy sources, and by the year 2030 our target is 4,50,000 megawatt. Out of many forms of renewable energy, solar energy appears to be most attractive. Though wind energy is also in the forerun, wind energy is, we are doing very good in wind energy, and countries like UK and other Germany, they are also doing very good, including US, in wind energy program. But worldwide, solar energy is most popular and most attractive renewable energy solution, renewable energy source. Out of many sources of renewable energy, you can see the solar energy. Everybody knows about solar energy now. Even in the poor villager living in Arunachal Pradesh, maybe you have to walk to reach there in 3 days. I have visited all those areas and I have done some work. Those people, they know solar energy. They don't know coal, they don't know oil, they don't know any other sources of energy, but they know solar energy. They are getting light from solar power, they are getting water from solar power, they are getting everything, fan, television, everything from solar power. So gradually, the poor people, they are getting most benefit from the solar energy. And gradually, we are shifting towards solar energy throughout the world. The solar energy has become also most popular. You can see there are 2 types of utilization of solar energy. One is solar thermal, one is solar photovoltaic. Again, solar photovoltaic is the major thrust, worldwide. Solar photovoltaic renewable energy installation is about 22 lakh megawatt now worldwide, and out of that, major portion is coming from the solar. Chinese are now #1 in the whole world, with the solar power installation. But nevertheless, India is also #5 in the whole world. India's installation of solar power is quite good now. Solar photovoltaic, as you know, directly converts sunshine into electricity. Once electricity is generated, it can be used for any purpose like lighting, pumping of water, running of fan, solar PV cells. Solar PV cells are the heart of the solar system now. Really, solar photovoltaic may be classified into 2 categories again. Solar photovoltaic. One is grid connected solar, one is off-grid solar. And we will be discussing a little bit more on grid connected solar, because grid connected solar are very popular in urban areas now. We are all putting up rooftop grid connected solar. There are many thousands of grid connected rooftop solar in the country now. Off-grid solar is also quite important. Off-grid solar is meant for the rural areas, remote areas. In grid connect system, solar power generated is directly exported to the grid. If you have a smart house, smart building or green building, then in your roof you can put up solar power panel. You can generate electricity. You don't need any battery. You just generate the electricity during daytime, and you connect your system with your own grid. That means your domestic grid, and whatever you generate, you just export to the grid. And if your electricity bill, monthly bill is 5,000 rupee, and if you generate electricity costing from solar, costing about 3,000 rupee, so you will get the net metering benefit. So your net bill will be 2,000 rupee. Even you can go for zero energy metering, zero energy bill. If you properly calculate your energy requirement, and if you put up the solar power plant in your roof through proper calculation, then your electricity bill may come to zero also. In many colleges, we have put up the solar power plant, rooftop solar power plant, where electricity bill has come almost 5%, 6%. Earlier bill was 5,000 rupee, 10,000 rupee. Now it is only 1,000 rupee or 800 rupee per month. So it's a very unique system, very popular system, coming up in a big way. In off-grid system, solar energy charges a battery. In off-grid system, where there is no electricity, there you can use. There are many people, as I mentioned in the beginning, there are many people in the world, in India also, about 20 crore people, they don't have access to electricity even now. So in order to give them energy, we can utilize solar energy definitely, and there we need battery, and battery, with a battery system, we can generate DC power, and we can convert that DC power with a inverter to AC power, and then any AC load can be operated. You can see, as I was mentioning, this is very important for green building. A component of green building is a rooftop solar power plant. You can see how a rooftop solar power plant, hundreds of rooftop solar power plants are now installed. This is a solar power plant of capacity 10 kilowatt. You can generate 10 kilowatt power. Per kilowatt, you can generate about maybe 1,200 units. Per month, from a 10 kilowatt, you can generate about 12,000 units annually, 12 to 13,000 units, and your payback period, the investment cost comes within, say, 3 to 4 years, and then for about 16, 17 years, there is no maintenance practically, and you get free electricity for 16, 17 years. So it's a very lucrative proposal, and India has a target. India, under National Solar Mission, we are supposed to set up 100 gigawatt, that is 100,000 megawatt of solar power, and out of that 40,000 megawatt will come from rooftop solar. So it's a huge target for India. Some income tax benefit also you will be getting, some tax benefit, and the cost has come down. Earlier cost was very low, very high. Maybe 3 years, 4 years back also the cost was high, but now the cost has come down and it is very competitive. You can compete with the conventional grid. What are the components? Just you see, you need a roof space of 100 square feet per kilowatt. Solar panel 350 watt each. You have to buy module mounting structure. The solar panel have to be mounted in some structures, so galvanized steel structures are used. One inverter of suitable capacity you need, and cables, lightning arrestor, and battery, if, as I have mentioned, if it is a off-grid system. So these are very simple, only 4 or 5 items you need. Many people, they think, oh, what is a solar power plant? Very complex, very complicated. No, it is not at all. And there is no rotating part. That is the unique thing. There is no rotating part. There is no wear and tear. Only a static portion, or everything is static. You have to install the solar power plant, and you can make your building, if it emits, you can become a really emission-free building by using your solar power plant, and you can become a green building, green power generator. So that is very important. In future, you see the green buildings are coming in a big way. The corporations are putting up in the bylaws green building construction for the new building constructor, who are constructing new buildings. So they have to, the regulation, the rules, the regulations, and the policy of the government is now to promote this rooftop, solar power plant. So if you want to become a really green person, green man, or if you want to become an owner of a green building, you have to go for a rooftop solar power plant. And for rooftop solar power plant, these are the criteria. Of course, you need sunny roof. That is very important. Sunny roof is required to put up a rooftop solar power plant. As I have mentioned, I have shown you the solar panel, but you can see here the inverter, which is also integral part of the rooftop solar power plant. You need the inverter. It may be 5 kilowatt, it may be 10 kilowatt, it may be 20 kilowatt. and you can see the structure, how the solar panels are fitted in the roof. You can see the structure here. These are all galvanized structure through which you can put up the solar panels in your roof. Rooftop solar system, as I have mentioned, rooftop solar systems are becoming popular in urban areas. It is a clean energy source. Government has declared incentive scheme for rooftop solar power plant. Regulation has also been notified by the regulator. There is, state regulation, regulator, or central CERC or ACRC are there. They have already notified that the distribution companies, they have to buy green energy. That means if you put up a solar power plant in your roof, the distribution company, they are bound to buy your power, that green power, because they have to keep their commitment towards their RPO obligation, that is the renewable energy power purchase obligation they have to keep, and as such they have to buy solar power from you. So that is also another facility which has been given by the government, that not that you are putting up a solar power plant in your roof and the distribution company like CSC or WACDCL, they will come and say, no, you have not taken permission, we will not buy your power. They have to buy. That is the regulation now, that is the rule now. India has a plan to install 40,000, as I have mentioned, 40,000 megawatt of rooftop solar power plant by the year 2022. This will ensure our environment clean. Now, this is all about, but I'll just show you some recent technologies, new technologies for, we are a research institution. We are doing a lot of research activities on solar energy. You can see the micro solar dome, which is a small dome which can be fitted in the roof, and you can generate electricity and you can have light. You can put it anywhere. Micro solar domes are now very popular in the country. In remote areas, micro solar domes are giving power to the forest villages, to tribal villages, to SC villages. A lot of remote areas are covered with micro solar dome. You can see the solar water purifier for remote areas where there is no electricity. They can't do purification activities due to absence of electricity. The solar energy, through solar energy, we are giving solar water purifier to the schools, and the school children, they are getting pure water, green potable water, which can be taken up by them, and they are not using now the water from the tube well or something like that, which are polluting in nature. So this is the new development, solar water purifier. You can see that, and you can see the solar biometric solar ATM machine. The ATM machines are very much, you can see in urban areas, but gradually in rural areas, solar power is not very reliable. It is very erratic. So ATM machines are not very common, but we have developed solar power-based ATM machine, which are now becoming popular. Many banks are now installing ATM machine in rural areas, where you can also, if you go to a village, remote village, you can just have get your money from the solar ATM. So this is another development we have made. And land is a crisis for putting up of solar power plant. That is also true. So can we go for floating solar power plant? We have a lot of water bodies, so we thought we can put up this type of floating solar power plant, which will generate electricity. So you can see now we have started putting up a floating solar power plant in India already. About more than 50 numbers such type of solar power plants, floating solar power plants have been installed. So I thought I'll give you a general idea about solar energy and how we have shifted from coal to solar energy and how we are going ahead with solar energy program in the country. There are many programs now of MNRE and DST on solar energy research activities, and MNRE has got a lot of other programs for promotion of solar energy. There is a big program on solar pump installation for drinking water and solar pump for irrigation, Kusum program of the Prime Minister. So huge program of the country in the solar energy area, so that we can achieve 450 gigawatt of solar power plant by the year 2030, and we can really make our urban areas more green, and we can keep a livable world for our future generation. So I thought these are all what I wanted to share with you. If you have any question, you can ask me. Thank you very much for patient hearing.
Thank you so much, sir. If any of the participants have any question, you may ask those, or you can also write on the chat box.
Yeah. Chat box
Anyone? Well, I don't think there is any question raised, sir, but I can see participants writing in the chat box that they're very happy and thankful with the presentation you have just given and the slide. Thank you so much, sir, for that.
Thank you very much.
We feel blessed that you have taken out your time and shared your views and thoughts with us. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much.
We have nearly come to the end of today's session, but before that, I'd like to invite Mrs. Munmun Shen, faculty, Sire, to propose a vote of thanks. Over to you, Munmun ma'am.
Thank you, Antara. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Yeah, thank you so much. Honorable Mr. Hitesh Vaidya, respected speakers, Dr. S.K. Agrawal and Dr. S.P. Gon Chaudhary, our chairman, Mr. Vishwajit Rai Chaudhary, and our most valuable participant. It is my privilege to offer thanks on this occasion. We reached at the end part of today's session, and I must say that this is a wonderful session which gives us idea in both the way of in theoretical and in the practical aspects. In both the way, it gives us idea about the inclusive urbanism and sustainable green technology. So on behalf of Center for Urban and Built Environment, part of South Asian Institute for Advanced Research and Development, in association with Smart Cities Mission, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India, and the entire supporting team would like to say thank you to Honorable Mr. Hitesh Vaidya sir for taking out time from his busy schedule and join us, encourage us. Not only that, he encouraged us to look inside of existing structure and also encourage us for working for effective solutions also. In addition, we are grateful to Dr. S.K. Agrawal for sharing the findings and opinions with us and sharing the new techniques for mass housing built and about the running projects, about the running schemes, which will also take care about greenery aspects. I would like to express our sincere thanks to Dr. S.P. Gon Chaudhary for giving excellent coverage to existing energy, its emerging history, about the pollution ages, which causes global warming, and about the global energy transition. So, today, we feel very enriched. We are very enriched. We become very enriched about through all these speakers. So thanks to all the speakers, and special thank to Mr. Hitesh Vaidya for taking out time, sir. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to record my heartfelt thanks for all the participants for their presence, patience, and encouragement. And also my dedicated colleagues, Mr. Antara and Mr. Arindam Ray. So participants, we will meet tomorrow. And for this information, over to Antara now.
Thank you, Munmun ma'am. For the participants, we will share the feedback link tomorrow at the end of tomorrow's session. Kindly be with us and join tomorrow. Hope to see you all tomorrow. Thank you all.